Hello, hello. It's Daniel here with Slow Haste. Thank you for joining me today, this afternoon, this morning, whenever it is for you. I wanted to make a video for the beginner on the Digitakt to go over some tips and tricks on how to elevate your basic rudimentary sequencing and beat making and pattern programming, what have you. So I have selected 5 percussion samples, and I'm going to go through and make a beat and kind of show you my process there, and then show you some elements on how to spice things up a little bit. So I have my samples. My first kind of general tip is just to be consistent with your sample use. Like if you know you're going to have a kick and a snare, a hi-hat, tom sound, try to keep them on the same triggers throughout your patterns and your songs that you're making. This will just help make it easy, so you're not in the middle of maybe performing or recording or something and you try to mute what you think is your bass synth that you always keep on 6, and then you realize it's a closed hat sound. So just a quick tip. Anyways, let's listen to the sounds. Sorry if there's some flickering. I have a bit of a wonky light setup that I should probably take a look at, but I am not going to do that right now. So there's the kick. Always keep that on 1. I have 1 snare on 2 and another one on 4. I always keep my snares on 2 and 4 for some reason. Maybe it's a subconscious drummer thing. I'm not sure. 3, I always use for an auxiliary percussion sound. It could be a tom, aptly so. Sometimes it's just like a click or a clack or some noise, or I'll reserve it for like a free space if I want to use another melodic component. Again, 4 is a snare. And then I always use 5 for my hats, my hi-hats. Okay, so let's start with the kick. I actually already did some editing on this, so this is the kick. The sample is bass drum 2 puff. It is a stock sound on the Digitakt, and I absolutely love it. I use it in almost everything. But what I do is I play with the envelope to make the decay really short. Because what I can do, I'll show you, is on beats that you want to highlight, like on the downbeat of 1 or like the last kick drum of a phrase, you can extend the tail and just give some emphasis to that note within the pattern. So I'm going to select my tempo. So let's see, we'll do a classic 90, right around 90 BPM. I'll make that an even 93. Why not? So, okay. One trick that somebody actually taught me in my comments section on one of my videos is that instead of accessing the metronome by doing this and then turning the E knob to turn it on, you can just hold both at the same time. Hit function first and then hold pattern, and it turns it on and off. Okay, I have already added all my pages, so you do that just by hitting function page and then clicking page until you have however many pages you want. And we're going to keep it simple and do 4 pages. So let us improv a kick rhythm. And let us quantize. And I'll show you what I mean by adjusting that envelope per step. So this first step, I want it to have a longer tail. So I will extend that tail by increasing the decay time. And you press and hold the trigger in step mode and press yes to preview. And let's go through and do that with some of the other kicks on each downbeat. And you don't have to be super precise about it, right? If you wanted to, you could copy that first trig, but I kind of just go through and do it by ear, nudge the knob a little bit. We'll do it with that one. Yeah, we'll just do it on each of the downbeats. I'm also going to take the overdrive, turn that up a little bit. And I already have some filter adjustments made. So this is off. And that's it on. Sorry, I really don't know what's going on with my light here. It's kind of crazy. We have our air conditioner cranked because it's super hot here today, so it could have to do with that. Anyways, and I might pitch it down a little bit. Yeah, I'm liking that quite a bit. I really like this kick sample, the bass drum 2 puff, because it has that like little fuzzy squishy noise at the beginning, and it can get like really low and growly when the tail is extended, but it still just kind of keeps it like soft and light with that little transient at the beginning. Okay, let us move on to one of our snare sounds. Let's play around with this rim shot kind of sound. So first thing, before I even program the sound, I'm going to mess around with some of the EQ. I actually like using this parametric EQ as kind of a low pass. And I'm also going to overdrive it a little bit. And I like some of that digital noise. It's really subtle, but you can hear it. And I'm going to pitch that down a little too. Okay, let's just ad-lib something in. All right, and I'm going to quantize that as well because you can clearly hear I missed the beat a little bit. All right, so we're going to leave that as is for now and play around with the hi-hats. So let us take a high pass. Okay, and I'm also going to take away the tail of that because that's how I like my hi-hats to sound, and I like to pitch it up a little bit. Yeah. Oops, I did not mean to record any of those trigs. But actually, you know what? Screw it. Let's record all of the trigs. This is fun. This is like the sculptor method. You start with a brick of marble, and then you can shape things once it's all there, if that makes sense. So you can hear that sounds super boring and awful, right? One thing I'm going to do is take away some of that high end. There are a couple things we can do to make that hi-hat sound a little more interesting. And let me mute everything else while I'm doing this. We can put an LFO on it. So we could put a really slow LFO on the tune. So that's like extreme. You can hear the slight variance there, right? So we'll do that. And then we'll use our second LFO to manipulate the start time, sample start time. And we can have it be random, the free running mode, or have it start at the same point every downbeat. I kind of like it random though. So it just sounds like more of a person now than a just straight ahead, lifeless kind of hammering of that hi-hat. Cool. Another thing you can do is to automate the volume. So I'll show you how to do that. You can hit record and play, and every knob you turn will be parameter locked to a step. So you can adjust the volume to have a very subtle sidechain effect. So all of that combined kind of just breathes some life into the hi-hat. We breathed some life into our kick track by automating that tail on the downbeat. And I'm going to leave our snare as is for now, because I'm going to add another snare element and see how that kind of interplays. But first, let's figure out the sound. I don't really like that kind of like built-in delay, so we're gonna cut that. Gonna brighten it up a little bit. Okay, so I'm actually gonna use this, as I was kind of saying I used track 3 as like trig 3 as like a auxiliary percussion sound, but I kind of like this. Okay, so I'm just gonna plug in a pattern, and it's not gonna sound great, but then we're gonna tweak some of the parameters and make it sound a little bit more dynamic. All right, I want to quantize it because I want it to be on the and. Cool. And we're gonna pan some stuff. So we're gonna take our snare, send it a little bit to the left, and take this weird sound and send it a little to the right. So I want to cut the bass a little bit more. Okay. And I'm also thinking that I want to add some delay to this. So to access the delay parameters function and the filter button. So I want to turn the feedback down. I want it to bounce to the left side because I have the sound playing on the right. And I want to shoot the echo over to the left. And I want to sync it to the time. So if you hold function and turn any knob, really, any of the parameter knobs, it locks it to like a tempo or like an even value. So it's something consistent kind of across the machine. I want it a little quicker than that. Okay, I like that, but turn the delay way down. Yeah, so it's just like very, very subtle, right? Another tip, just save all the time. Function in the gear, yes, save it. Okay, so this is our other sample, which let's play around with this a little bit. I might be rethinking the sample itself. Don't know if I'm in love with it for this context. And that's another thing, is don't feel like you have to stick with your initial choices. Okay, maybe we can do something fun with the reverb on this. Oh yeah. Again, overdrive and playing with the bit rate. Super fun. I got it. Okay, so I'm gonna play with some of those trigs, like this one, and I'm gonna like, I don't know, mess around with it. Sometimes it's fun to just like mess with the parameters, button mash, and then see what happens. Sometimes it's a disaster. Sometimes it's not. That one was kind of a disaster, right? Like it didn't really play in time. But if I kind of like that sound, but I could like throw it way out somewhere else and just have it as like a rhythmic effect. Okay, so I'm gonna take this trigger that I just programmed, copy it, and then I'm gonna put it on this beat by holding that and hitting paste, except I'm going to send it to the right instead of the left. I'm gonna overdrive it even more. Another thing I'm gonna do, because I liked whoops, didn't mean to do that. I'm gonna move this here so we have like a repeated note. But I wanna take that amp and just make it like a little tick. Like really quiet, and then send it off into the stereo field somewhere. And I'm gonna copy that note and put it there. But then to animate it a little bit, I'll take the low pass filter. So you'll get like a, we'll listen to it because I have an image in my head of what I think it might sound like, but I don't know if that's gonna work out. Yeah. I actually want to even copy that and paste it. And take this one, tune it down a little more, but open the filter just a little bit, and then send it to the other side of the stereo field. See, like playing with this just gives you some spatiality, some spaciousness to your rhythms. And taking, the few extra minutes to experiment and play around can really pay off. Oh, it's not. It's parameter locked. That's why it's not going down. So I have to use the level instead of the volume. The hi-hat was just a little bit loud for my liking. So yeah, this is like pretty fuzzy, kind of groovy. So just for fun, let's throw a chord on there. I have a ton of these blank forms samples that I could play around with. Oops, I did not want to do that. I want a chord sample though. Oops. I was blocking my view with my hand, so I was hitting guess instead of the up arrow. Okay, let's try messing around with this one. But I want to start the sample. Okay, I'm just gonna like ad lib a little, see how it comes out. Make sure that's quantized. Turn off our metronome. And I like this sample a lot, right? It's already really rich and warm, but we can add to that richness and warmth. Just gonna play around with the EQ. I really like that presence right there. I tend to like really hissy chords, hissy but soft. To get into the chromatic mode, in case you don't know, you just hold function and hit track, and then you can play things chromatically. I might cut some of the high frequencies actually. Yeah, I like that. Turn the volume down a little bit. I honestly am pretty into this. Save. And another very important thing in my opinion is the master page. So you access the master page by holding function and hitting the LFO button. And here's the compressor. So this is a very utilized tool by myself. I sound crazy. I use the compressor a lot on the Digitakt. Let's put it that way. So I'm going to play with the settings to how I usually keep them. And I want you to listen to how it sounds. So this is dry before compression. And that's with compression mixed in at about 63%. And you can select the source. I usually leave it at main. But sending it from the kick gives you some interesting results, or track one, which is where my kick is. But I like to leave it on main just to kind of give things a little bit room to breathe. And then I'll typically go in and adjust the volume of some of my samples that might have some higher frequencies in them, because those tend to just stick out a little bit when I apply my compression. So let's just keep tweaking. another thing that I love to use the LFO for is pitch modulation. I love vibrato and chorus. And this, isn't going to be for everyone necessarily, but where I just passed it. Yep, sample, tune. And then just very slightly adjust the depth. To give it some extra warbliness. And then another thing I like to do for sort of sidechain effect, and I think I do this in every gosh darn video I make with the Digitakt, is you go to the sample level, and my goodness, I love that with the 1.3 update, you can do 2 LFOs on any track. Seriously amazing. A true godsend from the Elektron deities. So 2 sidechain. First, set sample level as the destination, right? So sample level, yes. Change the mode to trigger. So this is going to set it to the beat, right? I take the speed down to 32 because I think it's set at like 48 by default. And then I drop the depth because I want the the volume to go down. And you can get some cool effects by playing with the different wave patterns, right? Whoops. That's cool. But I really like using, the exponential. Is my metronome on? No, it was off. Just have a lot of clicks and clacks going on. Sometimes it's hard to tell. Anyways, so yeah, that's really, I guess, a crash course in some of the methods I use that I started using to kind of spice up my samples a little bit, right? Because you could just lay down the samples and have that pattern exist as is. But if you take, that extra couple minutes with each sample, each sequence for each trig to kind of like fine tune the sound and really animate it and add that dynamic contrast to everything, you're going to have a great time. It's going to sound better and you're going to learn more. So and then just play around to your heart's content. What I was doing there was using track, you hold track, and then you adjust any parameter, and it applies it to the entire set of patterns. To make it sound horrendous, and then hit function and no to reload the pattern. It's a classic cuckoo trick, shout out. Anyways, yeah, thanks for hanging out. This was fun. I hope you learned something. I hope I didn't ramble too much, but I probably did. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing to the channel, checking out my Digitakt playlist, and yeah, have a nice night. Take care of yourself. Peace.